I hope they set things up properly.
Yeah.
Here we are. Welcome. This is Where Are All the Women. We're here. I'm sweating. How are you doing, Mary Lou?
Good. I'm sweating too. It's really hot here.
Is it?
Yeah, it's been in the 80s. It hit 90 over the weekend. It's unseasonably warm. But
Oh,
unlike where you are,
climate change.
there is no humidity here. The humidity is like 2%, so I'm not sweating. I'm just hot.
The humidity just started here like 3 days
Mm,
ago, and I was like, ugh, to turn my
yeah.
AC on, and I'm like, it's happening. It's not even
Yeah.
May. Now I have like 6 months of this, of
I don't like it.
sweating,
Sweating for 6
greasy
months.
sweating. I was supposed to
Mm.
be in Vancouver not sweating this week until the end of the election, but I canceled my flight on account of the fact I'm afraid of the Canadian government.
Yeah. You've had some run-ins with the
Yeah,
government. Yeah.
yeah.
Do you do you have legal counsel up there?
I have been talking to a lawyer. I mean, to be honest, okay, let's explain for those watching who may or may not know. Probably people know mostly, but so on Tuesday of last week, not this past Tuesday, the one prior, Elections Canada confirmed my candidacy. That confirms I'm going to be on the ballot for the 2025 election for the People's Party of Canada. That same day, my bank account was frozen. I didn't receive any communication about this. Nobody called me. Nobody sent me an email. No, nothing. I sort of discovered by accident because a transfer didn't work. So I called the bank, and they informed me that my bank account had been frozen, and they wouldn't tell me why. And I asked them to send me something in writing confirming this, and they refused to do even that. I eventually talked to somebody who told me that it had been the government that told them to do it. And I was like, can you send me what the government sent you? And they refused to do that. They finally gave me a number to call. I called that number. The guy that number was attached to is on vacation all week. So I don't know. I guess he froze my bank account and went on vacation. The voicemail offered another extension to call should this guy not be in the office. So I called that extension. Nobody answered. I left a message. I called back again later. Nobody answered. I left a message. Nobody called back. I called back the next day. Left a message. Nobody called back. Called back the next day. Couldn't get through. Technical difficulties. Called a general line. Got the runaround from her. She told me she was unable to give me any information unless I gave her information. I was like, I have no information. That's why I'm calling you to get some information. And she kept saying, well, I can't give you any information unless you tell me what's going on. And I was like, I've given you all of the information that I have. I'm trying to get some information. And eventually I was like, what is your job? What is your purpose? What are Canadians' tax dollars paying you to do? And she said, my job is to refer people to the correct, departments, people, individuals to talk to. And I was like, okay, can you refer me to somebody who can give me some information? No. And that's when I said, I was like, are you retarded? She was like, oh, well, you can't. I was like, is this what we're paying you to do? Like, really? And then I hung up the phone. And then, it had been a week at this point that my bank account had been frozen. And I was like, if I hadn't set myself up in the US out of fear of the Canadian government doing something like this to me, I would be completely fucking screwed. I would have no access to any money at all. Like nothing. There would be no recourse. I would just be completely fucking screwed. And for all the Canadian government they don't know I have a US bank account. Thank God I got scared enough of the frickin' Canadian government that I did that and started moving my finances over to the US. It still does screw me, but it's not like I had a bunch of money. I don't barely make an income in Canada. I haven't in years. But I do use it to pay my rent in Canada, pay some bills in Canada. Every once in a while, my YouTube payments go to that bank account. So I can no longer make any money off of YouTube. So if you do wish to support my work, please become a paid subscriber on Substack at www.meganmurphy.ca. Or there's a donation link down below, but I can't I wasn't making a significant amount from YouTube anyway, but all that money is inaccessible to me. I'm not able to switch my YouTube account over to an American account, because if you set it up as a Canadian account, you have to just cancel it and start over if you want to set it up in a different country. I can't switch it to a different bank account, can't switch the country. It's just going to keep, I don't know. I don't even know if it still gets deposited. I don't know where it will go. I guess it'll just get deposited into that bank account and disappear, or maybe it just won't go through. I don't know how they expect me to pay my Canadian credit card bill, so I guess they can figure that out. Like,
wow. You can't pay your Canadian credit card bill with an American account?
No, I don't think so. I mean, I'll try to figure something out, but
and they're just not telling you anything. And
no, nobody's told me anything. I haven't like received an email, a phone call, like nothing. Then they just won't. Yeah, they won't tell me anything. So I don't really care. Fuck them.
Well, but it is a big deal, and I care because it's terrifying.
I mean, I don't mean it's not a big deal, but I'm also just like, fine, cool, bye. Like,
yeah. So they just like demonetize activists and dissidents. And
they froze the bank accounts of hundreds of people who were involved in the convoy or supported the convoy. I got an email from a woman today who was living in Ontario when the convoy happened, and she donated $50 to the convoy, and they froze her fucking bank account.
Yeah, I have a Facebook friend who donated $10 Canadian, and they froze her bank account.
Insane.
But
this woman left Canada and moved to the US. I'm sure lots of these people have done similar things.
Well, I've seen some interesting allegations of why this happened to you.
Yeah, me too.
One being that you are laundering money for the cartels.
Like what, to Van City?
Yeah, exactly.
Like, what is
I'm not sure.
They're so stupid, these people. Yeah. Like, it's so funny because the people who've said these things are the exact same people who probably like call me and you conspiracy theorists, and meanwhile they're trying to claim that I was laundering money or like somehow depositing illegal money into my, like, I don't make money in Mexico either. Like, my money is just my whole income comes from Substack subscriptions and Patreon subscribers and some of my freelance writing work. So, and some Spotify payouts and things like that. That's all US based, thank God. But like it's, and then people have been like, oh, you just didn't pay your taxes. I was like, I don't make any money in Canada. I don't know the government taxes. Like, they don't have, there's not money to tax on. Like, the amount of money that I make the amount of money that goes into that bank account is so minuscule. Like, they froze it and there's literally nothing there. Like, I was like, okay, have fun. Like,
also, I know in the US, they don't debank tax evaders. You just get trouble and you get a bunch of I've
never heard of that happening to somebody over taxes either. No. But imagine how many taxes you would have to owe for them to do that. Like, you'd think that they'd need like a court order, but it would be impossible for me to ever owe such an amount of taxes. But the fact that they could do that, like, it's like, most people in Canada don't have American bank accounts. They just have a bank account in Canada, and you freeze that account, and then what? Like, what?
Horrifying.
You can't imagine, like, what if I was like a single mom and I'm trying to feed my kids? I mean, it's bad enough to do it to anybody, to one person. You can't survive, and they just don't return my phone calls. Like, it's, it's so disgusting and draconian. Like, I just can't believe it. Like, I can believe it, obviously, but and I don't know if it's politically motivated. I can't say for sure. It just seems so suspect, the timing. And because I can't think of a possible reason that they would ever do this for, I've had that same bank account since I was 10 years old. Like, it's not, there's no rational reason that I can come up with that would justify this. And I don't think anything should justify such a thing regardless,
And your bank just said they were ordered to do it by the government.
Yeah, they said they got a fax from the government telling them to freeze my bank account, so they did.
Crazy. Anyway, I think that's scary, and I can see why you don't want to go up there. Is there a precedent for them just arresting dissidents on the street, or
I have no idea. I don't
Mhm.
know. I just don't want to risk it. I just was like, I was like, no, I'm not risking anything. I don't want to get stuck there. I don't want them to try something on me. I mean, when I left in 2021, I was worried about that happening.
Mhm.
You know, Justin Trudeau's been trying to push through this bill criminalizing online hate speech that would, you know, you end up dragged through a human rights tribunal and, you know, either fined tens of thousands of dollars or put on house arrest or possibly
Mhm.
jailed. You know, they are doing anything like what they've done to the convoy people. None of it makes
Yeah.
any sense. Like they don't have any real charges. They just invented charges against these people, and some of them are still in jail. And
Mischief.
you know, we talked about this last time, but even beyond just, you know, Tamara Leach and Chris Barber are a more famous case, but there's other convoy participants who are still in jail right now over like made up charges against them, like
Mhm.
illegal guns, like bullshit. It's bullshit. And you know, Tamara Leach and Chris Barber, like as you know, we talked about this last week, were charged with mischief, which the judge defended on the basis that they were encouraging people to stay at or participate in the protest, which isn't illegal. It wasn't an illegal protest. It was a peaceful protest. Obviously, if you're organizing a protest, you want people to stay or participate in the protest. They're trying to put them in jail for 2 years.
For mischief.
There's
Yeah, they
no
could get you on all
accountability for
sorts
these
of things.
people.
Yeah.
Justin Trudeau's never been held accountable for invoking the Emergencies Act illegally or for, of course, freezing the bank accounts of all these people.
Right. Right. Or just the mass medical experimentation of forcing people to take an experimental drug.
Yeah, firing
I mean,
tens of thousands of people because they declined to take an experimental drug.
mhm.
Like, so many people lost their jobs and businesses over that.
Mhm. Crazy. Well, I also saw somebody say that maybe this will teach you to stop using the word retarded.
Yeah, right. That was like
So,
my favorite part about this whole situation, asking that lady if she was retarded.
right.
I know people make up all sorts of funny stories. I saw these losers say like, well, she called the lady at the bank a retard and then the lady hung up on her. So obviously she's not going to get any answers after that. And I was like, that's not what happened. But you know, I
Yeah.
wrote down all the information that I have. It's right there. And then they just want to make up other stuff. You know, it's anything because they hate me and they're obsessed with me, which is also funny because the other thing that they're always saying is like, oh, well, she's not even important. She's not important enough to freeze her bank account. She's not important enough to target. I wish everybody would just stop talking about her. You can't stop talking about me, so wish away.
Well, you make it so hard for the anonymous TERFs to get anything done.
In their anonymous Facebook pages.
Yeah, I know. So can you get a copy of the fax that was sent to the bank?
No, they refused to do that. I asked them.
Really?
I said that earlier. Yeah, I said, can you send me what they sent you? And they said no.
And okay, have you talked to a lawyer up there? Or what do you call lawyers in Canada? Do you call them barristers or something like that, like they do in Britain?
No lawyers. Yeah, I've been talking
Okay.
to a lawyer. I don't know.
Mhm.
I don't know
Yeah.
what I can do. I mean, because it's not the bank. People keep trying to tell me to contact the bank, but the bank is just like hands off because they're like, we just follow government orders. We have to do that. So I don't think there's anything that can be done about the bank. And I mean, do I want to try to bring the government to court? Not really. Like they have an endless
Yeah.
supply of money, and I don't want to be stuck in court with the government for years and years and years
Yeah,
like the
right.
convoy people have. That's not what I want to fucking spend my time doing. Fuck them. I'll stay here.
Can you
Sorry
still
to be
campaign?
like so, but like
Yeah,
no, like
it's
I
infuriating.
know, like why would I want to do that and then lose? I'm not gonna win a
Mhm.
case against the government at all.
No,
Like
no, of course not. And then can you campaign? Can you campaign virtually? Can you go
I
to
mean, I
debates virtually?
am no, I can't do any of the debates or all candidates meetings, which sucks because I actually was invited
Mm,
to a bunch, which I was happy about. And one of
yeah.
the ones that I was invited to was the neighborhood that I grew up in when I was little at the Britannia Community Center. So I felt a bit sad about that, even though I really would have been murdered if I'd gone. But like, you know, yeah, people have very kindly invited me to a number of meet and greets and all candidates events and stuff like that, which I thought was nice because I wasn't sure if I would be excluded or not because they have excluded PPC candidates in the past. But, you know, I'm doing interviews and we're putting up flyers and signs. If people want to put up signs, like lawn signs and signs in their window and stuff like that, you can contact me and we can get one to you and, you know, trigger the neighborhood as much as possible. Yeah, no, I'm gonna still campaign as I can from here, but I don't want to go back there. I don't know if I want to go back there ever again, which sucks because I have family there. But like,
Yeah.
I mean, we'll see what happens in the election, I guess. But I don't have high hopes. I don't have high hopes for the election. Like, I think Polyev has totally chickened out, and I don't know that he's going to do anything remarkable. It'll be better than the Liberals. The Liberals will be more terrifying for sure. But I don't think Polyev's going to make a lot of huge changes. I don't think he's going to do anything like go after online hate speech. But, you know, I don't know. You know, the Liberals still might end, even if Polyev wins, the Liberals might still end up with a lot of power in Parliament if they win a bunch of ridings, which, you know, they will in Ontario at least. Ontario always goes Liberal.
So horrifying. It's just really scary stuff.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's sort of, it's what I predicted was happening and was going to happen, and it's kept happening, and it's so depressing to me that Canadians don't really care or they don't want to see it. Like, they're like, no, everything's great and fine. We're just in danger from Trump. Like, it's like, no, you're in danger from your government and your neighbors.
Right. And the rise of Islamic fundamentalism in your cities. There are a lot of dangers.
They're importing millions and millions and millions of immigrants into Canada. That's one of Maxime Bernier's big platform issues is mass immigration, because it's really, I mean, it's really bad for the economy. It's really bad for jobs. You know, they bring them in and they can pay them low wages. And then, you know, Canadians who are Canadian can't get jobs or can't make a living. And, you know, it sucks up all these resources. They're paying out a ton of money for new immigrants to like put them up in nice houses and to pay for the expenses and all that stuff. And then, you know, of course it has an impact on the culture when there's a bunch of Islamists moving into your country with their values and refusing to change their values and integrate.
Yeah, importing millions of people who will literally behead you in the street for drawing a cartoon of their prophet it's not good for a free society.
And think it's their right to rape women.
Yeah, I think
it's
their right to rape women. Yeah, right.
Yeah.
No, it's horrifying. Yeah.
But good news out of Scotland.
I know. Turf Island for the win. And doesn't it? It's for the whole UK, right? It's the Supreme Court. Yeah. So it's England, Wales, Scotland, and Northern Ireland.
Yeah. That women are women.
So exciting. They won. But it's so profoundly stupid that it had to come to this.
It's so silly. Like, it's so silly to have to celebrate a win that says that women aren't men, essentially. That men don't count as women.
Even if they castrate themselves and take estrogen, they're still not women. How mean of me to not just pretend they're women if they've gone to all these lengths to cut their dick off and shoot themselves up with drugs. But no, they're still not women according to the British Supreme Court. How exciting.
Yeah. I mean, those Scottish women were so amazing. Like they were so unafraid, and they were so witty in their campaigning, and they worked so well together. I mean, I just didn't see, I'm sure there's always infighting, but I didn't see the kind of really toxic, destructive infighting that we've seen from Canadian feminists and a lot of the UK women too, actually. And I'm sure it happens in America all the time. I mean, the Canadian feminists were really the worst. They're the worst.
Oh, there's nothing happening there.
They refused to do anything because they hated people who were doing things so much. Like, they hate me so much, and they hate, you know, what I say and do and who I stand next to so much that they just refuse to do anything and let this all happen and then pretend it's all my fault.
It's your fault.
It's so crazy.
It's your fault. But when I first came on the turf scene, in like 2014, I thought Canada was where it was at. In North America, you had Vancouver Rape Relief. You were up there. It seemed like there was this hotbed of turf activism happening, and then it just fizzled out because of partisanship, right? Of refusing to.
Political purity,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
refusing to ally with the right, which is just whoever they say. Like, I wasn't right wing. I still don't think I'm right wing, but it was just like this culty, like, do what we say or else thing, repeat after us, and you can't stray from these politics and these ideologies, and you can't talk to this person or associate or sit next to them on a panel. And that's just only gotten worse there, ironically.
Right.
Like, you'd think that after seeing what's happened in other countries by women working together and across party lines and so on and so forth, that they'd be like, oh, okay, if we want to get something done, we have to do this. But they haven't. They've just gotten worse and, more stubborn, and they've gotten nowhere, and things in Canada are getting worse as a result.
Mm-hmm. The Scots historically are warrior people. I think about the history of the Scots. The Scots were the only group of people in all of Europe who successfully kicked out the Romans, fought back against the Romans, got them out of their territory. Now the Romans wouldn't even go to Ireland because that's crazy.
Because the Irish are so dirty and disgusting. And
no, because the Irish were too fierce. I mean, it was just like the
I thought I was they just thought the Irish were so deplorable that they refused to go.
No, they were afraid. They were afraid of the Irish.
All my roots are Scottish and Irish, so this is how I ended up like this. People are always like, "How come you were the only one in Canada?" or whatever, and I was like, "I don't know," but I think I do now. I do know, and when I see what the Scottish women have done, I'm like, "Oh, okay, I've got the Scottish/Irish fire inside of me."
Absolutely, me too. I'm actually descended from Saint Margaret, the patron saint of Scotland.
Wow.
She was married to Malcolm, who was the one who killed Macbeth.
Wow, that's cool.
Yeah, I got my Scottish roots. She's the patron of childbirth and all sorts of cool stuff in Scotland. But yeah, I
should look into my ancestry more closely. I've just been averse to doing those like DNA tests because I don't know, giving all my information to the internet. I guess the internet already has all of my information.
Well, I think it's pretty clear you got a lot of Irish.
Yeah, I do know. Well, my sister's done it, and my mother's done it, and my father's done it, so I do know what my roots are.
Yeah, no, go Scots. And I do believe that lineage is part of why this is the group of people who finally pushed back against this colonizing force, which is just as like sick and crazy and totalitarian as the Romans, Maybe more so. I mean, the Romans actually they were awful, and I'm still mad about the Romans, but they weren't quite as nuts as this thing. Yeah, go Scotland. This is a huge win for us. This is something to really celebrate. It's so rare we get a legitimate win, and I hope it plays out to actually affect the laws there.
Yeah. And, I went to Scotland in 2019 to speak to Parliament, and it was for Women Scott and Joan McAlpine who invited me to speak. And they invited me to speak because they wanted me to, warn based on what had happened in Canada, because we'd passed our gender identity legislation in 2017. And this was coming down the pike over there. And so they brought me over to be like, don't do this. This is what's happened in Canada. These are the dangers. And I saw that Joan tweeted, hold on, I just retweeted it, so I'm trying to find it. She tweeted, "I'm not crying. 6 years ago, I was pilloried by progressive misogynists for saying this in Parliament," i.e. that she's tweeted the judgment here, which says the Supreme Court unanimously allows the appeal. It holds that the terms man, woman, and sex in the Equality Act 2010 refer to biological sex. And yeah, she was pilloried by progressive misogynists for saying this in Parliament. I refuse to succumb to groupthink fashion and the science denial that gripped and still grips institutions and political parties. Thank you for Women Scott. But yeah, I mean, she stood up, and all of those women who stood up early on were just put through so much hell over
Mhm.
it. And yeah, what a great victory to be like, we were right. I mean, of course they were right. But it was, it's so hard to be standing up almost on your own, which so many of us were back then. And, especially when you're in parliament and you're in government and you're being attacked by your peers constantly every day. And yeah, I mean, she was great. She was a really nice, smart, brave woman.
And yeah, you're not only being attacked, but you look around and it just feels like the invasion of the body snatchers, where you're thinking, like, what happened to all of these people's minds? How can they actually believe this sexist nonsense that they're spouting when, you're just telling the truth that there are two sexes, male and female. Sex is immutable. You can't change sex. And you're called a hate speech criminal for saying that.
I know. It just makes you feel really crazy. And
yes.
And on top of that, I remember like so many people in Vancouver, family, friends, whatever, being like, why do you have to do this? Like, why do you have to keep talking about this? Like, why do you have to be so mean about it? And, like, I don't think I even was being mean. I probably got progressively meaner as I stopped giving a fuck. But like early on, I think I was really, really careful about my arguments because I thought that I could win people over. Once you realize that they won't be won over, that they refuse to be won over, then you stop parsing your words so much, right? But why do you have to be so mean about it? Like, why do you have to talk about this all the time? Why do you have to cause all this conflict? This is making me really uncomfortable. This is making it hard for me and my friends because I'm friends with you. It's like, oh, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. We should all just say nothing. That's what's always worked in the past and is clearly working now. If nobody says anything and then just lets this go on and on and on and on until we live in, completely in like clown world.
Which is where we are now. But people like legitimately, like, there's spouting propaganda that there's no difference in strength, athleticism, endurance. This men and women, there's no scientific proof that men are stronger than women. I really flipped out on someone about the pool and the fencing, where someone was telling me, well, those two sports, there really isn't any difference. So why do you care about women's pool and women's fencing? And it's like, hello, men's arms are much longer than women's arms. And their break shot is harder. That gives them a much bigger advantage in pool from the very first shot. And they can reach across the table and get shots more easily than women can because they are taller and have longer arms. The same with fencing. Their reach is greater. Their legs are stronger. Their center balance is different. What the fuck is wrong with people that they're arguing this now?
Yeah, I think, I don't know. I guess they want it to be true. I think, maybe for some of them, it's like they want to be able to take the easy route, which is no, this is all fine. Trans women are women, and stop keeping trans kids out of sports as if that's what's going on. Nobody's being kept out of sports. It's about trying to keep males out of women's sports. And so they convince themselves, like they're seeking arguments. Like people aren't seeking out arguments that are challenging their thinking or their beliefs or their desired beliefs. They're seeking out arguments that support their beliefs. And I think that's actually probably pretty normal for most people. It's maybe just not normal for people like us. I mean, I broke from the left and from feminism because I did start seeking out arguments that challenged my beliefs, and so started discovering that I was wrong about some things and changed my mind. I was like, oh, but it's because I sought it out and I talked to people who were challenging these ideologies and these politics, and I learned some things, and as a result of learning those things, I changed my mind. But I don't know, it seems like, there's a lot of people who are not interested in that, and then I don't know. It's strange. And one of the most frustrating things about it all is they never feel stupid or apologize after the fact.
No, never. And they'll spout the most insane nonsense. And then, everyone who's in this fight has known since they entered it that one of the most frustrating aspects is that they keep changing their argument over and over and over again. Like you're trying to have an argument and then suddenly they're talking about something else. An example would be, at first they said, well, we're only talking about gender. Gender identity is different than biological sex. No one's saying anyone's actually changing sex. And then 2 breaths later, they're saying that they actually have changed sex and there's no such thing as biological sex because intersex, and that proves that nobody is any sex at all. Like, who knows? So with the sports, first it started off saying, well, people who claim to be trans who are taking these hormones and were born in the wrong body, they're different than the sex they were assigned at birth. They're actually, like, trans people are different. And they actually are female. But now they're straight up arguing that there's no difference in strength between men and women, between males and females. Does that make sense? Like, first it was just arguing it about the trans kids, and now it's, oh, there's no proof that high school boys are stronger than high school girls, period.
Well, and how do they defend their Me Too movement in all this? Like, if males aren't dangerous to women and they aren't predatorial and women aren't vulnerable to men, then what was Me Too about? Like, what were you saying there?
Oh, yeah, that's a good question. I wonder how they would answer that. Probably with some infuriating nonsense.
I think they would just say, oh, well, that's men, not trans women. I don't know how they would justify, what the difference in brain, body, and behavior is between a man who says he's a woman and a man who says he's a man.
Right.
I just saw that Heather Mason and Cosbar are taking the government to court over men in women's prisons, which is great.
In the U.S.?
In Canada.
In Canada. Oh, great.
Yeah. The JCCF, who are great, are representing them. Heather Mason is the one in Canada who's been fighting this from the get-go. I had her on the podcast a couple times, maybe a few years ago or so. And I've been on some panels with her. She's great. She's, an activist. She's an advocate for women in prison, and she was an inmate for a long time. And she was in prison when there was a man in there. And she's been fighting this, again, almost all on her own for a really, really long time. And so they're taking the federal government to court over this. And I was reading the email, like, press release that the JCCF sent out. And it says, since 2017, so that's again when Bill C-16 passed, male prisoners with intact male genitalia can identify as women and get transferred to one of 6 federal women's prisons located across Canada. Previously, such transfers were only permitted after surgeries to remove male genitalia had been fully completed. More than 90% of trans-identifying male inmates are serving time for violent crimes, for sexual crimes, or both, according to Correctional Service Canada research.
These are the most violent males in the prison system demographically, the highest percentage of sex offenders among any demographic in there. I have some issues with that. I don't care if they are castrated or not. They're not women. Keep them in with the men. It's just they're still men. It's so profoundly offensive to women to say that a castrated man is now a woman.
Yeah. Or even that he's harmless. I mean, not having a dick and balls might, make you slightly less harmless in some ways, but it doesn't mean that you can't be a sadist and that you aren't violent and that you can't overpower a woman. Like, that you can't abuse or assault her. Like, that doesn't make any sense. Like, okay, you can't literally rape her in this one particular way, I guess, but you can do a lot of other things.
Well, it's not criminal behavior, but it is aggressive male behavior displayed by Brianna Wu, who's, this 6'4" hulking male who insists he's a woman because he's had his penis cut off and had a artificial.
He loves talking about hairstyles or something.
Yeah, and because he's so he's so into girly things. He still acts like a man. He intimidates women like a man does. He's enormous. He could beat up the vast majority of women. He could kill women with his bare hands because he is huge. Very few women, like he is a foot taller than the average woman. And he went through a male puberty, and no, he's, I'm tired of the conditions. None of them should be in women's prison. And you start saying they can come into the women's prison if they've had these surgeries. What do? They all start agitating for taxpayers to pay for them to have these fetishistic surgeries.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and I mean the prison issue is particularly disgusting because these are such marginalized women to begin with. They're voiceless women with no rights who've suffered a life of abuse.
Right.
Women who are in prison have, very likely and probably almost 100% of those women have suffered an inordinate amount of sexual abuse and assault to have ended up in a place of criminalization just because, women don't tend to, they certainly don't tend to be violent criminals, but I mean, when a woman's criminalized, she's, had a very troubled past, I would say. She's already come from a really, really hard place, and she's probably been through a lot of really, really hard things.
And these are literally the most marginalized women. And, for the leftists, okay, they're the most marginalized, they have the least power, and they're disproportionately women of color in prison. You'd think this would be a group that the leftists, DEI addled minds would really be interested in protecting, but no, their sacred caste are these men who say they're women. That is like at the top of the oppression pyramid. That is the top of their priority list of who to defend. It's so infuriating.
Yeah. In Canada, it's Indigenous women are way overrepresented in the prison population, which are the people that these progressives really claim to care about the most. They've been going on and on and on about it's endless, like the colonialism and these mass graves on residential school sites that were never actually discovered. And, people
that
just desperately, these like land acknowledgements everywhere and constantly and groveling and the orange shirt day and cancel Canada Day because we were so awful to the Indigenous people. And I'm not saying that, there wasn't a lot of awful things that happened in Canada to the Indigenous people, and that awful things didn't happen in residential schools, but they use Indigenous as this virtue signal and then don't give a shit at all about these women who are being abused or, sexually harassed or sexually assaulted by these violent male predators in prison while they have no place to go and no recourse and can't even speak out about it because they're, they have to pretend that doesn't exist in order to keep saying trans women are women.
It's so gross. And, of course, the Indigenous women are more likely to live, to come from poverty. They're way less likely to be able to hire a good lawyer. We all know that, people who have the money for the best legal teams don't usually end up in prison, and they certainly don't end up in with the same kind of sentences. Like, you get poor people in prison. That's who you've gotten there. And with women, I would argue that you could let every single female prisoner out of every prison on the planet, and the rate of violent crime would not statistically change in any noticeable way. Very few women are in there for violent crimes, but these men who say they're women are like often hyper violent men, like more violent statistically than the men who don't say they're women who are in prison.
Yeah, it's appalling, and it's appalling, but again, not surprising that the Canadian government won't address it. They've just refused, and no one's made this an election issue. The Conservatives haven't. Like, this is again like this huge disappointment with Poilievre and the Conservative Party. Maxime Bernier has been talking about this for years in the People's Party of Canada. But they're kept out of the media and kept out of debates, and this guy that everybody had or has high hopes for is just not saying anything. He's not saying anything about gender identity, ideology, and women's rights. He said a couple things, a while back, but he's just completely pulled back from saying anything that I guess is considered controversial by progressives. It's like, you're the conservative party. You don't need to cater to progressives. Like, do the opposite. Like, go full Trump, man. Like, what? We don't need two liberal parties.
Do you think that, like we're seeing in America, that there's a silent majority of people who oppose males in women's sports, males in women's spaces, males in women's prisons in Canada?
I don't know. I mean, I think if you asked most people, I don't know. It's almost impossible to say because there's no representation. Somebody asked for a little hug. I mean, I know a lot of people in rural places, not in the cities, not in urban places, who are against this and who have tried to push back and have been silenced and things like that. And like, the Canadian media won't cover these people or talk to these people or acknowledge they exist. So it's really hard to know how many of them there are. People are so spread out in Canada because it's really such a huge country and the population is really spread out. So I mean, I do, I believe that if Pierre Poilievre made this an election issue, he would get a lot of support, because I do think there are a lot of people who are desperate for somebody to say something about this and for this to be addressed. And I don't know if it's the majority, but I know that it's a lot of people, and I think it would make a big difference in his campaigning. But apparently he's not doing it. And I guess not enough people care about it to force it as an issue. Hi, baby.
Yeah. I mean, there's been some progress with this administration, but I worry that, like abortion with the Democrats, I worry that the Republicans won't actually want this issue to go away because it's such a winner for them. All they have to do is pull this issue out every election. And this issue pisses off the majority of people. The majority of people understand it's profoundly unfair. The majority of people don't like being told they have to ignore what's in front of their eyes. They don't like to have their speech policed, especially Americans. And I worry that in the same way the Democrats have never actually codified abortion rights, even though they have had supermajorities in the House, the Senate, and had the executive branch multiple times and could have done that. I worry that the Republicans understand what a winner this issue is and how much they can fundraise on it. And they will win, they'll win every time they throw this out, because it's,
because it makes the Democrats look like such idiots.
Exactly. The majority of people are not in favor of pediatric mastectomies and men and women's sports and rapists in women's prisons. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I hope you're wrong. But I can see why you would be right. Again, considering what's happened with the abortion debate over the years. It's been funny to watch people try to bring up abortion in the Canadian election, because Pierre Poilievre isn't against abortion, but also there's no abortion debate in Canada, and there hasn't been in literally decades. Like, it's just not a debate in Canada, and none of the parties are threatening to take away abortion. Like, they're so desperate to be like the Americans at the same time claiming to hate the Americans, constantly denigrating America.
Is Maxime Bernier's party anti-abortion?
I don't know. I don't think they're anti-abortion. I think that they want to open up the debate, I think as far as a free speech issue goes, they're like, let's open up this debate and talk about it. I know that there are lots of PPC members, and maybe some people running who are anti-abortion. I mean, I'm not against having a debate about anything. I think people should be able to talk about whatever they want to talk about. And, there's PPC supporters who have contacted me and asked me to rethink my position on abortion, or said, oh, well, we'd like to support you, but what's your position on abortion? And I've just written back and been like, whatever. I respect your views, but I'm pro-choice. Sorry to disappoint you. Like, it's not. I don't have anything against people who are anti-abortion necessarily, like, unless they're really horrible, obvious, stupid misogynists like Matt Walsh. But like, you know, there are people, some people have good reason to be anti-abortion. I just don't agree, because at the end of the day, for me, it's about bodily sovereignty and women having to have the right to decide what to do with their bodies, even if that's a really hard or even maybe unethical decision. Like, you can say it's unethical, but then I think it's more unethical to force a woman to have to carry a pregnancy that she doesn't want to carry and give birth when she doesn't want to give birth. I just think that's too dangerous.
Yeah, to me, it's, I mean,
that's the state to get to decide that, right?
Yeah, whether or not it's distasteful. I believe there's no point in pregnancy at which a woman stops being a citizen and becomes a state-regulated incubator.
Yeah.
Yeah, and but that doesn't mean I'm not open to discussing it. And I have a lot of respect for the many people I know who are opposed to abortion. I don't think it should be criminalized. I totally understand why people are personally opposed to it.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, it's like, okay, well, I just think this is a personal choice that each individual gets to make, and I don't think that the government or anybody else should get a say. I mean, it's your body, your choice, literally, and that's how I feel about everything, including vaccines.
Yeah, exactly.
So
yeah.
Neil Young came out and endorsed Mark Carney today.
Oh my God.
He's such a loser. What a disappointment. What a disappointment that man is.
Oh, it's like another little knife in the heart. I loved Neil Young. He got me through some really hard times when I was, in college. I would just like sit and listen to Harvest and Live Rust and just feel like he was like my cool uncle who'd been through so much, helping me through the hard times. And I can't believe what a loser he turned out to be.
I know. I mean, it's like, I was pretty much done with him after what he did to Rogan, trying to get him kicked off of Spotify, like, and storming off. I'm taking my music off unless you take Rogan off. It's like, oh God, you're so gross. And like, you're such a baby.
And your time has passed. Like you're an OG, you're an icon, but you're not selling records anymore. Like you're not hot anymore. You don't have this power that you think you have. Rogan is a rising star. You're, like,
like you're not going to beat out the power of Rogan. Sorry. Yeah. No. He wrote a letter. He wrote a letter and put it on his website, like open letter to Mark Carney, the globalist banker, loser that nobody's ever elected, the most boring person on the planet. Never mind globalist banker and evil. But he wrote this letter. I'm going to read you some of it. Dear Mr. Carney, I'm writing because I want to tell you how much I appreciate and support what you are trying to do for our great country, Canada. Neil Young lives in America, by the way. Although I have lived in the United States for most of my life and recently became a citizen of the USA, I'm Canadian and always will be. Blah, 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 blah. So now, like you, I've met a lot of people in my career from many walks of life, some who were wonderful, a great help to me, and some who were just there for a while. At this stage in my life, I am thankful to all of them who showed up and joined me on my journey. And I am so grateful to have the luxury of a spotlight to bring attention to important causes and try to lead the charge through my music for rights and fairness on behalf of people. It was urgent. It was urgent for all of us to speak truth to power. I can't believe he's saying all this to Mark Carney. Now here we are again. Canada is facing threats to its very existence, incredibly, from people who thought were our friends. They want our resources. They want our land. They want our fisheries. They want our water. They want our Arctic, and maybe they want our souls. I know the US president could use a soul. It takes more than bravado to fight. He's so delusional. It takes more than bravado to fight this kind of threat. It takes brains, deep economic knowledge of how the world works. It takes strong, intelligent strategies and the ability to recognize and seize opportunities both at home and on the world stage, opportunities that can bring a new level of prosperity and safety to people who right now may be paralyzed with fear as they look to the future of Canada and the world. Mr. Carney, I believe that you are the person to do it. I believe you are the person our country needs to lead us through this crazy situation and bring us out the other side as a stronger, smarter, more resilient Canada. Our core values of caring and fairness and generosity intact, along with our souls. Without a doubt, you've got the chops to get it done. And man, you've got the guts to take it on. It's a heavy lift for sure, Mr. Carney, but I, for one, am with you all the way. Peace, Neil Young.
Wow.
Like Looney Tunes. Like, you're so delusional. What are you talking about? What are you talking about?
I wonder if he thought the puppet corpse of Biden had a soul.
Probably,
yeah. Oh my gosh, why is this necessary? Like,
I know. Why did you even need to write this letter to Mark Carney? Maybe somebody paid him.
Oh, I just wonder if, again, Invasion of the Body Snatchers. I'm like, is this Neil Young? Is this the guy who put on Farm Aid? Like, what's going on here?
I guess all of this is really Trump derangement syndrome, right? It's just people who really believe all this propaganda that Trump is like the greatest danger ever faced in the world and that he's a fascist dictator. And he's, they believe that he's a danger to Canada somehow, that he's out to get Canada. And yeah, it's just totally unthinking, brainwashed propaganda.
But Biden was the president when Neil Young was coming out full swinging for forced vaccination and wanting Joe Rogan to be taken off Spotify. That wasn't Trump's time that Neil Young was being a shill for the globalists or for whoever was in charge of that whole campaign. This is just crazy. I'm so disappointed in him.
Yeah, I mean, it's just really stupid, to be honest. I mean, I think a lot of these people and musicians and, I don't know, public figures who people respected are actually not very intelligent. So I don't know. It's sort of like stick to your art. I mean, people can say whatever they want to say, I guess. But, in general, like artists and musicians and actors are always really disappointing in what they say and believe because they turn out to be quite dumb. And they are insulated from the real world too. They're elites and they're not engaged with working class people.
Who published that?
Neil Young.
Oh, but where did you see it?
Oh, I saw it on X. The Liberal Party tweeted it and Mark Carney tweeted it, but the letter itself is published on Neil Young's website.
Yeah, that's disappointing. I wonder if Joni Mitchell will be next.
Probably. Mark Carney, you're the one to do it. You got the gusto.
Well, and isn't there an issue with Mark Carney not actually residing in Canada for a very long time? And
yeah, he didn't live here for ages and ages, like a really long time. I think he was living in the UK.
Right, where he was the head of the Bank of England.
Yeah.
Like, that's not a problem. Nobody's going to talk about that. Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. I don't know what to say, Canada. I feel like if people aren't going to revolt, then you might be cooked. I don't know. I talked to somebody recently who said, I think things are just going to have to get a lot more uncomfortable for people before they do something. And that's sad because I don't want people to get more uncomfortable. It's already so bad. And the thought of it getting worse is really scary. But it's that thing where people are so comfortable that they don't want to shake themselves out of that comfort. And I think they're afraid that if they do stand up and do something, it'll be too uncomfortable. Maybe they'll lose their stuff. I mean, that's the same reason why nobody spoke up about the gender identity thing, right? It's like, well, I have a family. Well, I don't want to lose my job. Or, well, my friends are going to be mad at me. And it's like, well, what do you think is happening to the rest of us? Like, yeah, it's a risk to say unpopular things and to stand up and tell the truth when the government tells you not to. You might suffer for that. But Are you just going to say nothing and let it get worse and let, people's lives be ruined over this because you are scared about your money? Like, come on, stop.
What's it going to look like as it gets worse? That's my question.
I think just no free speech. Like, I think it's going to be like China style. I think that I think the internet's going to be heavily censored and the media is all going to be government funded propaganda. And I think that the economy will get much worse. The government racked up so much debt during COVID, and that's why the inflation is so bad. Groceries are just insane. I saw somebody post like it was like $8 for a carton of eggs. Like, never mind meat and produce. Like, I'm sure I mentioned lots of times, when I was back there in August, September, and the spring last year, I was just like, how I can't afford to eat. Like, I can't afford to, just to eat at home, never mind to go to the pub. Like, why is it costing me $60 to get chicken wings and a glass of wine at the freaking pub? Buy a steak at the grocery store for $25-$30. Like,
wow.
It's just, and they've been trying to force these EV mandates on people, which will mean that, people won't be able to afford to buy the EVs. So they'll be leasing, it's that you'll own nothing and you'll be happy thing. People can't afford to buy houses. Rents are insane. I mean, you're really stuck. If you don't have any money, you're stuck in your house, and then you're a real easy target, just like people were during COVID for all this internet propaganda. They control the algorithms. They control it that you see in your feeds. If you say something out of line, then you're either censored or maybe taken to court like for hate speech.
Yeah.
It's real authoritarianism. And it's so crazy that people don't see that and that they're pretending like it's way over there when it's right in front of their faces.
Right. It's amazing that people can't see it. And I guess it's the natural progression of socialism that, more and more things people will want the government to take care of more and more aspects of their lives. They're going to want socialized, you probably already have socialized utilities. Is that the case? Like electricity and water?
Yeah, like BC Hydro.
Yeah.
Like that.
Right. And the education system and the healthcare system, but it'll get even worse with that probably.
Yeah, and I mean, Canadians are taxed so much already. I think it's like 40, probably almost half of their income people are taxed for what? To pay for their failing healthcare system, where people can't get in to see the doctor and are dying on waiting lists, or it's like you have to sit in an emergency room for 7 or 8 hours and sometimes more to get something checked out, and and
I mean, 7 or 8 hours is nothing compared to what we have down here in many places. And the waits are like 16 to 32 hours in many places where I live. It's just.
Are those like state hospitals or private? Like, how does that work?
Well, everything's kind of a mix down here. Like there's the public hospital of University of New Mexico, but then the private hospitals. But most people in New Mexico are on state insurance. We just don't have any providers. But I hear the same stuff is happening in Toronto and in so many Canadian cities, that they're shutting emergency rooms because they don't have providers to staff them. That just, there's nobody to work there. People are dying just trying to get to a different emergency room. That stuff happens here sometimes too. But but Americans really they look to the Canadian system like it's so much better. It's just a different kind of bad.
People on X are asking if I'm still running for the PPC or did I drop out? No, because I think they're assuming because I'm not coming back to Canada because I'm staying here. But I don't actually have to be there to run. I'm a ballot only candidate, so I'm on the ballot, and you can vote for me to give the middle finger to the NDP and to show that you don't support these progressive parties, even if I'm not going to win. And also just so that you have somebody to vote for who believes in the core things that you believe in, civil liberties, free speech, bodily sovereignty, men aren't women,
Mhm.
no child's born in the wrong body. Nobody else who's running in my riding is saying that. And yeah, I mean, I wasn't running to win. I've said this many times. I mean, I'm not going to win that riding. The NDP is going to win that riding. I'm
I just
winning
wish you
to
could
force a conversation that's
No.
not happening otherwise, and to sort of, to give people the opportunity to vote for somebody that they actually want to vote for.
I really wish you could be in those debates, but I totally understand why it's too dangerous to go up there.
I just don't think it's worth the risk. And I don't even know if I could have done the debates anyway, but for the safety reasons. Like, I feel like I'd have to pay for so much security, and we just don't have that. People have been donating to my campaign, which I really appreciate. Thank you. But a lot of this stuff that we have to spend money on, like just, signs and flyers and things like that, are quite costly. So I'm not sure. Maybe I don't actually know how much has been donated to my campaign. I don't see that money. I'm sure somebody could tell me if I asked, but I have not. I'd have to hire bodyguards and private security to do those kinds of things. But I do feel sad that I'm not there too, because I would I like the idea of doing something like that. But at the same time, the idea of doing something like that in East Van feels pretty dangerous. But I did want to do some events. Like, I wanted to do an event with Maxime. I was supposed to do something with him on Monday and obviously wasn't there. So that was sad. And I was hoping we could organize an event specifically about the gender identity issue and women's sex-based rights and the riding, for people to come and talk about these things. I'm really, really disappointed that we can't do that. And I keep sort of second guessing myself and thinking, oh, maybe I should still go, but I think it's dumb. Like, if I end up stuck there
in jail,
worse, like, it's not worth it.
No, and I think you're right about the risk of violence. Well, we'll see what happens. I hope you get an answer from the government, just so there's something people can see in writing. But it would be totally on point for them to just keep you hanging and never give you information that can be,
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
That would be on brand. So yeah, we have lots of people watching, which is great. My channel is demonetized, so if people wish to support my work, I would really appreciate that. I know that there's lots of people who like to pretend that I'm a grifter and I'm doing this all for money, but I really don't make very much money unless people become paid subscribers on places like Substack, which is at www.meganmurphy.ca. And you do have to type in the www, otherwise it doesn't work, I think, because of the redirect. Or you can just go to Substack and search my name, Megan Murphy, or you can donate directly via PayPal. I put that link in the live chat and down below. You can become a patron on Patreon. You can just go and find my podcast, The Same Drugs, on Spotify and click the follow button. That helps. Those podcasts are monetized a bit. And if you want to donate to support my campaign, I think I put that link below in the show notes. I'll double check after we're done, but I'll also put that link in the live chat. What do you have coming up, Mary Lou?
What I have coming up, I am preparing for my 16-week herbal class, the Herbs of Enchanted Family Medicine, that starts in June. I'm really excited about it. It is a deep dive into over 150 medicinal plants. We'll cover some basic botany. We'll cover the science and lore of different medicinal plants. It's going to be great. And if people would like to take my class, the Herbs of Enchanted Family Medicine, they can go to my website, enchantedfamilymedicine.com.
Awesome. I've also put those links in the show notes down below. And we were going to do an advice episode this week, but
nobody asked for advice.
We don't have any advice questions, but also there's other sort of pressing things to talk about, I think. But we do want to do another advice episode because we got a lot of good questions last time we did it. So if you have questions for advice, you can submit those. I started a thread on my Substack in the chat, and then I also started a thread on Patreon. So you can send those to me via DM or post them in the chat. And I guess like and subscribe. It doesn't really matter anymore. I don't know what I'm gonna do about this channel and just like any monetization going nowhere. It's crazy that I can't, that they won't let you just switch the country on your account, that you have to like start from scratch. So and you can't connect it. You have to connect it to a Canadian bank account. You can't connect it to PayPal or anything else, which I also find a bit crazy. But yeah, I don't know, man.
I'm excited to see how it unfolds, but I have a feeling we'll be disappointed that they're never going to give you any information of what has happened. They'll just keep you frozen out, literally and figuratively.
Yeah. I'm excited to see how many votes I can get from Mexico to beat out Jenny Kwan. I just would like to embarrass her a little bit. You know what I mean?
That's exciting.
Jenny Kwan is the NDP candidate in writing. There's been issues, you know, the MP. Okay. Well, thanks everyone for tuning in. We'll be back next Wednesday at, I keep getting the freaking times wrong over and over and over. I can't get it through my head, but I think it's now 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern.
I think that's right.
Okay, perfect.
Right.
Okay, thanks everybody. Bye.
Bye.